And hello, everybody, and welcome back to me. I am stateside here tonight, back from the beautiful Riviera Maya, where it was absolutely stupid hot last week. I think this time last week it was still like 83 degrees. We're at my resort. It's not 83 degrees here today. And speaking of cold, we are joined by the best co-host in all the land, Brian Moss, Larry Marley. Brian, we will start with you, Mr. Yankees hat, hoodie. Man, you are all up in some fall here.
Oh yeah, I am, and I'm going to be a little bit jealous of you guys because you guys will be a little colder than we will here in the next few days. I believe I was checking. I think you guys will be like 32 here pretty soon, and we're going to be in the 40s. And I'm like, that's not right.
Yeah, we had a freeze last night. I lost a plant because I didn't bring it in. And Larry Marley, I'm sure you will agree with me that Brian can have this mess.
Oh yes, it was awful. In fact, I've got all the plants in the kitchen right now. My wife's looking at me like there better not be a bug. I was like, honey, there's no living bugs right now. I mean,
What are plants? What are you guys talking about?
So those in for you, and like I think I joke here in Memphis that somebody asked me last week when I was in Mexico. So what's the weather like? I was like, well, both days of fall are fantastic. Like we get 2 days and they're fantastic.
Yeah, they're amazing, but they go straight from summer to winter, right? So no, and that's one of the things that makes football season here so great is that for the most part, all of our games are played in late either summer or late summer, right? And then you got to get to late in the season, then it becomes winter, right? I mean, those are the only two times we ever play football here. So we are still in what I would consider late summer here. So hopefully it will warm up by the next home game. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, I'm not counting on that. Well, gents, a second, I wasn't here to talk about last week, and I'm not interested in reliving that history.
Oh, come on, John.
But it seems like pretty much we relived it on Saturday. It was a little different in that Memphis jumped out to that 17-0 lead, and you never really felt like the game was over at that point because East Carolina's too good of a team. But I don't think any of us expected the wheels to fall off quite like they did. Of course, Tigers fall 47-45 in 4 overtimes, if memory serves. 2 or 3 chances to win it, and just couldn't put the biscuit in the basket, and just couldn't get it done. Congratulations to Chris Howard, AAC Special Teams Player of the Week, 4 for 4 on field goals on Saturday. But Larry, we'll start with you. And Brian has a thing that he's got 2 pages worth of notes, and it's all little things and just these very, very small, innocuous things that add up to a loss. And I know everybody wants to point at the catch, non-catch, but we lost the game well before that ever happened.
Oh, and guys, I won't say a turning point, but one of the key turning points, you're up 17-7. They've come down and scored a touchdown. And look, that's going to happen, right? I mean, you're up 17-0. They drove down and scored a legit touchdown. You still have momentum in the half. You can go into the half, and I understand that you want to try to put points on the board, but be careful with the football. And look, worst case, how much time was in right at that point? What, 3 minutes to go in the half, something like that, and so more or less. And you turn the ball over, and instead of taking care of the football, you turn the ball over and you give them the ball on your 18, and they score again. So they got 2 touchdowns in less than a minute, and they basically erased your entire lead. Well, there's your game, because now you're in a dogfight. I won't say you had the game, but what you can do once you get the lead, and John, we're going to talk about this in a little bit as far as defense, but once you get the lead, what you want to do, I'm not saying sit on the ball, but what I am saying is you don't have to be as risky. You can take a little better care of the ball, especially in that situation on your side of the field. Tell them, hey, look, if you're going to get more points in this half, you're going to have to drive the length of the field to do it. And we didn't do that. And that really was what turned the game. And now you're in a dogfight. And then it's just anyone's game at that point.
But, I'll issue a counterpoint to this before Brian has his say. that's great. Memphis needs to take care of the ball, and Memphis needs to, march the ball down the field and not be as risky. That requires something called a running game. And yet again, this week, Memphis can't run the ball especially when it matters. We're going to get into the first overtime play call and all that, but like Memphis couldn't run the ball again, and it's becoming kind of ad nauseum. And, this is one of those cases. I'm usually a stats don't lie kind of guy, but you look at the stats, Memphis is still 5th in the AAC in rushing at 140 yards a game. It feels like, Brian, we've rushed for negative 140 yards in the last 3 weeks. We just can't run the football.
Yeah, no, it's it's pretty crazy. So before I start my rant, I'll just say in the second quarter, when it was 10-0 and ECU tried that fake punt, kudos to Tyler Murray. That was a fantastic play by him. So we talked about little things. First little thing that I noticed is when it was second quarter, 6:19 was it was first and goal for Memphis. He had two wide receivers to the left, 2 tight ends kind of like bunched up on the right hand side, and you hand off to Asa Martin, which I don't mind. But I guess it's designed to where he just doesn't cut back, because I texted you guys a picture of it. Wide open lane, and there was only one defender there. One-on-one with Asa Martin. I'm going to take Asa Martin all day long. But if you think about it, throughout even this year or last year, I don't remember. I could be wrong, but I just don't remember seeing a lot of misdirection plays, in the running game. So that's one that to me that was a missed opportunity. The next one, and you had to settle for a field goal, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that one. No. But anyway, go down to 3 minutes and 6 seconds left. ECU has the ball. You're up 17-0. I think Memphis did score on that last one. But Collins, one of the best players on defense, he got called for a cheap shot. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
And it
was a good call.
Just think, it's once again, little things. You had no business doing that cheap shot to a defender. Just kind of like push the guy after the play. Hold your emotions. It could have been second and 10 from the 21-yard line, but instead it's first and 10 from the 11. Just little things, because 2 plays later, all of a sudden it's a 17-7 ball game. Second quarter again, just it was first and 10, 23-yard line, 1:29 left. I don't mind trying to score again before the half. I like the aggressiveness. But you have 4 wide. Austin Myers just got burnt. Just burnt. And end result was I think a sack, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no. Hennigan ran for 3 yards.
That's right. Yeah.
And then second and 7, 2 wide receivers on the left, 3 on the right. You have no help in the backfield. So your offensive line has to talk to each other. You had your left tackle, Matt Dale, didn't say anything. And the outside linebacker comes up to blitz, runs right by him, sacks Seth. Seth did have a second and a half to find that receiver, that little hot route underneath. But a second and a half that's not a long time. And he's young. But he didn't look that direction, didn't even notice if that blitz was going to come. Little things. I can keep going on and on. ECU had the ball on the 16-yard line with 47 seconds left. Before that, real quick, 3rd and 15 on the 18-yard line. When he threw the interception, terrible throw by Seth. But the officials missed that defensive pass interference on Michael Edwards, on Eddie Lewis. I don't know if you caught that, where he just pushed Lewis. The ball's in the air. I don't know if that particular play, where if the ball was uncatchable, that's why it wasn't defensive pass interference. But that interception, that killed momentum right there.
Well, the interception, we're probably talking about the same one that bothered me, was the pick 6. and it bothered me for a lot of reasons. Number one, it was a poor decision, and then that's
No,
fine.
that was a different one.
Yeah, different. Well, that and a poor decision's fine. It's going to happen. Seth's still young. I mean, Seth's what,
Yes.
19? I mean, he's a season and a half in. He's going to make poor decisions. Nobody from Memphis touched the East Carolina player. You go back and you watch that, East Carolina players are looking for somebody to block. Like, you go back and you watch it. Like, there's 7 guys in the frame, and they're not touching anybody. And a Tiger doesn't get a hand on a guy returning an interception for a touchdown. That really bothered me. And that's the first thing at the night that made me kind of slam my fist down, because that to me is that's effort, right? And that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And
well, that happened. Yeah, that happened in the third quarter. And
Yeah.
before that, in the third quarter, it was first and goal on the 4-yard line. 2 straight runs, nothing ever happened. Third down, you had 3 wide receivers to the right, tight end to the left, who was obviously going to be double teamed. Pre-scoring, I mean, they were eyeballing him all night on the defense, but he's double teamed. And you had that 3 wide receiver. If you watch the play again, the 3 wide receivers on the right, that middle wide receiver just a little button hook real quick was wide open. He didn't even look that way. Hennigan's focus was on pre-scoring the entire way. So what could have been a touchdown there, that ends in a field goal. That's when Memphis was up 20-13, and then very next was when Hennigan threw the intercept or the pick six. But see, it's just those little things. Even with Hennigan, it goes. We talked, before the air. It's coaching. Little things, those little things are starting to create a big thing, and coaching has to figure it out. They really do.
Well, and here's the rub with all of that is, yes, and I think on the play that ended the game, the 2-point play where they tried to go to Priest-Corn again in the back corner of the end zone. You look
Asa
at that
was
play,
open there.
I could have gotten the ball to Asa Martin, and I can't throw the deep out. I could have run over there and handed him the ball and had plenty of time. He's wide open. And part of that is Seth has been so reliant on Priest-Corn late in drives that it's hard for him to look anywhere else. And then it's a cascade, right, guys? Because then now that's that way because wide receivers haven't been in good separation all season. And it's that way because Seth doesn't have time. And when he does have time, he panics because he's wondering if somebody's coming the backside. It's just over and over again. And another thing that just really chapped my hide watching the game, 2 weeks ago, Gabe Rogers has 197 all-purpose yards. 3 touches the entire game? Are you kidding?
Mm-hmm.
3 touches for a guy that torched Houston's defense last week or 2 weeks ago. You can't find ways. When you sit in a press conference, you say, we got to find ways to get this guy involved. Good Lord. I mean, then you just touch him. He's out of the game. I think he only played I have to go back and look, 35 plays. And that's the stuff that bothers fans and bothers me more than anything else, is that it's different from week to week. There's no consistency on the field. And I'll just go ahead and say it. What was the problem everybody had with Josh Pastner? Every game was this up and down. Lineups were crazy. Nobody could stay on the court. Nobody knew what was. And you just can't do that, Larry. You can't continue. You've got to figure out. We all have careers and jobs, right? And we all know who we are. And that's what Memphis has to do, is figure out what the hell is our identity and what are we going to do consistently.
Well, that's right. And you and I have been doing this show for 9 years now. This is our 9th season. And talked about you as a team have to know what you're going to do on 3rd and 3. You have to know. What are you going to do? I mean, you may not run the same play, but you know that you're back in 2018, we knew that somebody was going to run the football. I mean, we ran the football, right? That's what we were. We were a running team. And then, and under Mike, we were basically a running team that threw the ball when we had to. I think that would be a fair assessment. I don't think that, and you and I, we've talked about this on the show. I don't know that Coach Silverfield knows what he likes. I don't. If and I actually tried on the show. I think I asked a similar question of that variety of, hey, what's your ideal game? I think is the way I put it, and didn't really get I never got an answer that I thought confirmed it for me. I don't know what Coach Silverfield would think if he was to dream up a game of this is exactly what I want. I don't know that he could come up with one. And I think
he wants to. He said before he wants to be a running team. I think he's trying to find, and I think that's why he brought Cramsey in, because he's trying to find, the type of offense under Mike Norvell.
But we don't have Mike Norvell players, and look, that's not a slight to the guys we have. But who on this roster, from a running perspective, is Antonio Gibson, Kenneth Gainwell, Darrell Henderson Jr.?
There's no Patrick Taylors on this team.
There's no Patrick Taylor. And the problem is, again, I'll just say it again, the closest thing you have to Antonio Gibson is Gabe freaking Rogers. Get him the damn ball. And I mean, he's not.
I think another reason why you don't know if there's any of those players on the team is because of the offensive line.
Yeah, but
to me, that's the difference between both.
I think the offensive line is making holes. You showed it. It's just that we're not either not reading it or not being coached to go to the hole.
But that's few and far between. There's more offensive linemen are getting burnt than there are opening holes, in my opinion.
That's just agreed.
For me watching.
Agreed. But I'm saying that I think that there are plays to be made in the running game.
And we'll talk. I know Gary's about to come on, so we'll talk more about the offense. I mean, about the overtime, because I do want to talk about that catch non-catch.
Yeah, I just I don't know. I was very, very frustrated on Saturday. It was frustrating because we were close. I mean, we were close a couple of times, and being real, that's a game we should have won. We had more
last two games.
Well, again, I don't want to relive 2 weeks ago. I mean, but yet another game that Memphis should win.
But one of the things, I mean, how many 3-score leads are you going to lose? I mean, I know you say it's early, but guys, a 3-score lead is a lot. I mean, that's a lot, especially to be up 3 scores with 5 minutes or 6 minutes to go in the second quarter. I mean, it's not like UTSA where we scored 3 touchdowns like that. It's not like that. You're up 17-0 midway through the second quarter. And at that point, and I know, John, you mentioned blitzing, for example. You can't blitz. This is not the pros. You can't blitz the whole game. These kids would just be toast by the midway through the third quarter. But you blitz to get the lead. You've got the lead. Now you can just sort of sit back a little bit. Okay, if they drive down, they made a nice drive, but make them do it again because they haven't been able to do it. And maybe next drive you can blitz a little more. I mean, I don't know, guys, but 3-score leads, losing that is just not something that good teams do. And I'm sorry, but if you're disciplined, you don't lose a 3-score lead. You don't. It happens occasionally, but this is the 5th time in the last 2 seasons.
I mean, again, I'm a big stats don't lie guy. And those are numbers that don't lie. You've blown 5 3-score leads in 2 years. And all of them have a common denominator. You attack, you get a lead, you left your foot off the gas. I mean, they all occur the exact same way. When we come back, we're going to try to get Guerry Smith connected up here. Guerry is with thewavereport.com. We hope to talk to him about the number 25 Tulane Green Wave. Finally, the year John Maddox gets off the Willie Fritz bandwagon, they start winning. We're going to step aside for just a moment. When we come back, we will talk Tulane. Thanks for joining us. You're listening to Tigers Tonight. And welcome back into Tigers Tonight. John Maddox, Brian Moss, Larry Marley. We're still trying to get Guerry connected up here to talk Tulane, but Memphis heads down to New Orleans on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. For people come from Memphis, the worst possible game time, because that means you can't really go down Saturday morning because, you know, you got to get there so early, and you can't really come home Saturday night. So you're kind of in New Orleans for 2 days. I'm going down Friday myself. So, you know, this is an interesting game. I've had a lot of people tell me that, you know, Tulane's not very good. They don't do a lot. And I'm like, well, they're 6-1. They're the first bowl eligible team in the league. They're number 25. And as I tell Memphis fans whenever they win games, you know, at the end of the year, they don't ask you how, they ask you how many. And, you know, Brian, Tulane has done what they needed to do to win. And that's all you have to do is do enough to win. And now you get a kind of a prone Memphis team at home.
Yeah, and when you take a look at the stats, the teams really, they kind of mirror each other, definitely on offense, because I think total offense, you know, the Green Wave, 420.2 yards of offense per game, and Memphis is 420.1. You know, so the stats, you know, are very similar. Tulane averages 33 points per game. Memphis is 35.3. So I mean, just a lot of similarities. You know, one thing that I think Memphis defense, if they can keep Tulane off the field on third downs, because the Green Wave, they're only 38% on third down. So I think that's where they can really key in on this matchup.
Well, you know, that is important also. But, you know, I looked at a couple of numbers that are just kind of mind-boggling to me for Memphis. You know, we're talking about the running game earlier and all that. Memphis is last in the AAC in tackles for loss allowed. They're giving up almost 10 a game. But they lead the AAC with 9 interceptions. Did we go back in some sort of time warp to back in the days when the Memphis defense carried games? And although it hasn't looked like it the last couple of weeks, but you know, that's just so bizarre to me. And I think that tackle for loss number, Larry, is a big one, because now, and you know, I am forever a member of the second down is the most important down club. Mm-hmm. Memphis has this tendency to go from 2nd and 6 to 2nd to 3rd and 13, or 3rd and 9, or 3rd and 11, and that changes entirely how you call a game.
Well, and not only that, the problem to me with us on second down, and John, you mentioned this, so we'll get 3, 4, 5 yards on first down, and instead of attacking and going ahead and getting the first down, right? Because you don't want to necessarily go to third down if you don't have to, because anything can happen. You drop the ball, silly can happen, you slip, anything. You have to, you know, make the play at that point. And instead of attacking and getting the defense on its heels, we do something predictable. And that's what you're talking about, John. You get, let's say we do a little, I'll give an exact example of this from the Houston game. We did a little screen pass, and I think it was to Gabe Rogers, ironically enough, and he got 6-7 yards on first down. So now it's 2nd and 3. So at this point, the whole playbook's open to you. You can do whatever you want on 2nd and 3. And instead of attacking and trying to do something, when I say attack, I'm not necessarily meaning go downfield and throw a long pass. I'm saying do something simple, but that is going downhill towards attacking the defense. Instead, we turn around and hand the ball on a straight up the middle dive, which got stuffed, and we either got no yards or we lost a yard. Just exactly what you're talking about, John. So now it's 3rd and 4 instead of, and I don't think I know we didn't get the first down because we turned around. And so you were in prime position to go up and get on the move. I think we'd already had a first down, and now you're punting the ball. So to me, the tackles for loss that you're talking about are coming at just drive killing times. And how many times do you get the ball in a game, guys? 12?
At most.
11? And so if you kill one of those drives, you've basically killed approximately 10% of your scoring opportunities just by that. So again, exactly what Brian said, little things, making a call, being aggressive. And to me, that's one of the issues. And you hit the nail on the head.
And that's something Tulane has done pretty well this year, is making the right call at the right time, because they haven't been exciting. I mean, they haven't been the most entertaining team to watch, or they haven't gone out and just blown doors off of people. But when the plays are required, when they need a play, Brian, they tend to know how to get one. And that's been the difference between the two teams this year.
Yeah, their most exciting game was against South Florida, where they scored 45, but South Florida scored 31. So that's why I have a little bit of hope, for Memphis here. But when you take a look at the Tulane, I mean, there's only really one game that you could really say that they were just like awful, and that was that Southern Miss game. Were you at that game, Larry? No, are you still muted?
No, I was not at that game.
Okay.
It was in Tulane, and I was not there. But
yeah, and even they had close games. Houston, I think that one went in overtime if memory serves me correctly. But they just get it done where Memphis has not gotten it done. It just seems things have gone their way, and kudos to them. Yeah, I know Willie Fritz is. I mean, he's a heck of a coach, and he's doing it again this year. So, I mean, what else can you say about the Green Wave?
This is the single greatest meme I think I've ever seen. This is from the Tulane Kansas State game where they beat the Wildcats, and No Context College Football, or No Context CFB, who is a great follow on Twitter, said he thinks about this often, and I couldn't agree more. Anyway, that's the best thing about Tulane season for me so far, is that graphic. But anyway, so you've got two teams kind of trending in an opposite direction here. You've got Memphis that really needs a win. The last time we went to, I'm sorry, back up. Here's something that only you and I know, George. The last time Memphis went to Tulane as a 7-point dog was 2011, and they won 33-17. Memphis is a 7-point dog this time. And again, that doesn't mean anything, but I just found that interesting. Memphis has only been a 7-point dog to Tulane 3 times or 4 times, and Memphis is 2-2 against the spread. So, Brian, I guess your hope is kind of warranted, but I can tell you that place, Ullman, has been a shop of horrors for Memphis. They've gotten a couple wins there, but it's not been easy. It's a great little field, and they don't, unfortunately, they don't really draw that well there. But man, it's a great field and a good atmosphere. You're in New Orleans, but I'm here to tell you, you probably saw it on the first forecast. It's going to be hot on Saturday afternoon, about 2:30. It's going to be 80 degrees. And if it's typical New Orleans, and Larry will back me up on this, if it's typical New Orleans, the humidity will be about 1,143% that time of day. And it doesn't matter that it's October, right? Or November. It doesn't matter. It's going to be
December, January, doesn't matter.
That does not matter. But, Brian, as we go into this game, we've said this last week. How is Memphis going to handle adversity? How are they going to handle adversity? Well, they came out once again like a house on fire and fell apart. So maybe, this goes back to the fable of the tortoise and the hare, right? The hare rushed out to this big lead and got, kind of got lazy. And the tortoise just kind of kept doing whatever it is. I don't know. I'm not a tortoise expert, but whatever he does, he just kind of kept doing it and just plodded along and ended up winning. And I think maybe that's the approach this week, Brian, because I think Memphis was so focused on putting Houston behind them that they just came out and just tried to obliterate East Carolina. And then when the first little thing went wrong after that score at the 5:40 mark of the second quarter, down the tubes it went. And I saw a lot of body language of, oh no, here we go again. So maybe the approach for Memphis this week is, you know what, guys, let's just come out and play. And I know the coaches say this, but let's just play 4 quarters. Don't worry about how big the lead is, how small it is. If Tulane's in the lead, just keep playing. Just play. But it's on the coaches to call the game in that manner as well.
Yeah, and it just, I mean, they have to button up a lot of stuff. I mean, just do your job. I remember watching the 60-minute interview with Deion Sanders, and he was, part of his coaching thing is like he's telling kids, do your job. Don't worry about anybody else. You do your job. If you have 11 kids just doing their job, you'll be fine. And I think that's what has to be hammered into the Memphis players. Just do your job, because there's so many times, a missed block here on the offensive line causes a sack. Drop passes. I mean, we've seen so far this year. It just, I don't know. I mean, do they come out and start fast again? I think they will. I don't know if you just change what you're doing and be methodical about it. No, you come out there and play fast, but you have to. You just have to button up on your things. Oh, looks like we may have Guerry.
All right, so let's bring in Guerry Smith. Guerry is, of course, the publisher of thewavereport.com and also works for the Times-Picayune. Guerry, how are you this evening, my friend?
Pretty good. A little harried there. I've done 2 podcasts already in Memphis this week. Didn't have these technical issues, but my Luddite qualities have come to the fore big time in the last 10 minutes. I've had to have my wife and then 12-year-old son try to help me out here.
Well, that's why the kids are around, right? Yeah. So, well, first of all, congratulations to Green Wave, first team in the AAC to be bowl eligible. So we'll start right there. In the past, I've been the president and founder of the Memphis chapter of the Willie Fritz fan club. I kind of fell off the wagon this year, and wouldn't you know it, this has been the big year for Tulane. So what is the big change in 2022 from 21, 2019, 18? Right. Go on and on.
I think we can throw out 21 because of the hurricane and stuff like that. But nonetheless, as you pointed out, what they're doing this year, Tulane is doing this year, they didn't do in any of those other years that they went to bowl games either. It was basically a 6-6 team all 3 of those years. There's a couple of differences. One, they're loaded with seniors with experience, with 3 years of starting experience. And I think, again, last year, people forgot that because they were just so bad last year, but they gained more experience going through a lot of tough situations, being in Birmingham for a month and all the other stuff, playing Oklahoma on the road, Ole Miss on the road. That doesn't do much for your confidence down the road, all that. But then the other thing is Tulane really hit it big in the transfer portal this year. They've not been a big transfer portal team in the past. And this year they brought in 10 guys. 9 of them are heavy contributors. And the 10th, Shotty Clayton, had a big 4th quarter running out the clock against South Florida. He was one of the most heralded of them all, a running back. And that's when you add basically 9 starter caliber guys to a team that's already experienced, you have a chance to have a huge uptick. And that's what's gone on with this team.
When I take a look at, your guys' schedule so far this year and who you've played, we've talked about, I'm sure you may have heard us talking about it, but it seems like that, Tulane is doing all the little things correctly, whereas Memphis, the little things are really hurting them. What have they worked on, I guess, because years past, I saw Tulane really like Memphis, where these little things, would pop up and hurt them, but not this year.
Yeah, well, it's funny. The number one thing is just tackling. Now, Tulane did not tackle great against South Florida. That was really the first time where they had a little slippage. But the first 6 games, that's as good a tackling team as I've seen in ages. And watching Memphis, you can relate to how important tackling can be. At times, Tulane just wasn't missing any time. I mean, they went to Kansas State. Deuce Vaughn's one of the best running backs in the country. He had 8 straight 100-yard games, and Tulane didn't miss a tackle against him. And then their quarterback, Adrian Martinez, couldn't run against Tulane. And then the next 2 games, I think against Oklahoma, he ran for almost 200 yards. They don't miss tackles. And when they do miss tackles, they're rallying to the ball so much that it doesn't turn into big plays. Before the South Florida game, Tulane had allowed fewer 30-yard gains than any other team in the country in the FBS. South Florida hit them with a few this last Saturday. But I'd say that's the biggest difference. Willie Fritz has always emphasized tackling. He's always prided himself on tackling, but this is actually the first year where you can really see it come to the fore. And it's just a really fundamentally sound, experienced defense. And I think that's the biggest difference.
So a lot of people may or may not remember this, but Pratt's first start was against Memphis, a win. I think it was 2020, I believe, if I'm not incorrect. What has and I saw him myself last year in the Liberty Bowl or whatever it's called now, Simmons Field. So what has his maturity been like this year as his growth? What do you think's the seminal thing that he's doing better this year?
Yeah, that was the Memphis game was at the end of 2020. He actually started beginning the fourth game of that year, but he did play well. He's always been a great leader, done all the right things off the field. Last year, he just got hurt. He got hit big time against Oklahoma on their last play, basically their last chance. He was scrambling for a first down at the end of the game to get him in range to possibly beat Oklahoma, and he got clobbered. He played through it, goes to Ole Miss. They're getting destroyed. His last play before he got taken out, he landed on his shoulder. He played through those injuries all year, but he just wasn't healthy, and it showed. You could make the case that he lost Tulane the game against Memphis last year at Memphis because Tyjae Spears was running not wild in that game, ran for 264 yards, but Pratt could not throw accurately with his shoulder. He used the offseason. He gained about 20 pounds of weight, got stronger, and we're finally seeing and he's now in his third year as a starter, and all that's coming together. He's healthy, and now he's an experienced quarterback, and he's a dang good player when he's healthy, and we're seeing that he's a much better runner than people realize, and he throws a beautiful ball, and those things. Now he started off a little shaky this year, and then he missed the Houston game with another shoulder injury that turned out to be pretty mild, and the last 2 weeks he threw for a career high against East Carolina and then surpassed that career high against South Florida. He's definitely played the two best games of his career back to back.
Is this the first year too, Guerry, that I think we're seeing the Willie Fritz offense, like what he brought to Tulane? Like it feels like this year, because you go back and you watch his old games, it's like this is what he wants to do. Like this is his identity. Do you think really that finally all the pieces have come together? You talked about the transfer portal, that we're finally seeing who Willie Fritz really is.
Not quite, because when he first came to Tulane, he was an option coach, not a full option. And he, more for recruiting purposes than anything else, he abandoned that without ever saying it after 3 years, because they were just having a hard time getting wide receivers and quarterbacks that could throw the ball into the program. But he really, when the offense changed, he was when he went to Will Hall in 2019, and Hall modernized the offense. They've stuck with that approach. And then what happened last year, Hall took the job at Southern Miss. His best friend became Tulane's offensive coordinator, who Memphis, you guys would know, Chip Long, because he spent 1 year at Memphis and it just didn't work. He didn't mesh with the other coaches on the staff. He didn't mesh with the players. He's a dictatorial type coach. He criticizes a lot, and that old school method can work if you're winning. But when you're in the midst of a 2-10 season, Michael Pratt's never come out and said it, but there were times I'd be watching at practice, and Pratt would throw a 40-yard touchdown pass, and Chip Long was in his ear about how he should have thrown to the tight end because he was the guy that was really open, and that got old real fast for the players. And I think when Chip Long, who I got along with great, honestly, off the field, when he left for Georgia Tech, Willie Fritz brought in guys he was a lot more comfortable with, guys that coached at Central Missouri, where he had been a head coach a long time ago. And the whole staff just meshes a lot better. It was kind of like Chip Long was a lone wolf. The other guys didn't really get along with him. The players didn't really get along with him. And once the season started going downhill, they almost kind of quit on him a little bit. So I think that's the biggest change. But Tulane, when Willie Fritz first arrived at Tulane threw maybe 1 out of 20% of the time. And now they try to be a 50-50 balance pretty much every week.
Switching the defense, when you take a look at this, the Tulane defense, I kind of like them a lot. Is Nick Anderson the best player on that defense, or would it be Larry Brooks?
I'd say I would not Larry Brooks, although he's good. They've got a lot of candidates. It's either
Mhm.
Nick Anderson or Dorian Williams. They're his partner in crime at linebacker. Before last year, I think College Football News picked Dorian Williams as the preseason AAC player of the year, defensive player of the year. And then, like everybody else on the defense, he didn't really have that kind of a year. He's back to playing the same way he was before then, just a sideline to sideline guy. Nick Anderson, also a terrific player. Tulane's linebackers are absolutely terrific. Both of those guys. They only use two, and those guys are either you can take your pick between those two guys. Nick Anderson has been defensive player of the week twice in the conference. He's an incredible leader too. He's a little smallish compared to Dorian Williams, but both of them don't miss tackles. They cover a lot of ground, and they're both extremely smart. And I think they're the heart of the defense. But there's a lot of experience all over the board on this defense.
I am a huge Saints fan myself. Who dat? And I'm curious, as someone who's very keen on the New Orleans sports, I guess the sports culture.
Mm-hmm.
Has the city begun to embrace this team? I mean, at 6-1,
we'll find out this Saturday. In a word, no until now. But being ranked for the first time in 24 years, that's a big deal. I mean, I think there'd only been 3 programs in the country that had gone longer without being ranked in Tulane, and one of them was New Mexico State. You don't ever want to be in a category with New Mexico State in anything. I think another one was Rice, but like the problem with Tulane had the huge win against Kansas State. Then they came back and had a decent crowd against Southern Miss and lost. And a lot of people thought same old Tulane. And then the East Carolina crowd, the students were on fall break. They weren't around. It was a poor crowd for that game 2 weeks ago. But this is homecoming. That's always traditionally a larger crowd anyway. Memphis is a bigger draw than East Carolina in general for Tulane. And I think we'll find out this Saturday if they can really get that place more full, because it's been pretty empty for them for the most part for years now. But this is the first time Tulane's ranked. This is and that, people see that there's been all kinds of media about it. Willie Fritz does his weekly press conferences on Tuesday. I can tell you there were about 12 people there today. Usually there's 3, 4 for media. So the media coverage is picked up. A lot of times I've been the lone wolf covering this team. I'm there every day, but there seems to be a lot of excitement, but I'll believe it when I see it on Saturday in terms of the crowd.
Yeah, and this will be another game where, the rare chance Memphis will help the crowd, because we always take a really nice contingent to New Orleans. It's one of our favorite places to go. And along those lines, does Tulane consider Memphis to be a rival?
Not necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't put it that way. But Memphis is clearly one of the more attractive teams in the American Athletic, and one of the marquee teams in the league. So that has it going for it. I will say this: the players have certainly treated big, because I still think that Tulane's blowout win over Memphis 4 years ago at Yeoman Stadium was absolutely the best performance that Tulane's had in Willie Fritz's entire tenure. Obviously, Memphis was flat that night, because that was a very good Memphis team that Tulane just destroyed along the line of scrimmage, and really haven't seen that hardly at all, except for that game. And then Tulane was able to get to a bowl game 2 years ago. That was not as good a Memphis team, and that was the COVID year. You can almost throw that year out for a lot of different reasons too. But certainly the players have gotten up for Memphis. But I don't think it's gotten. I don't really think there's any team in the league. Houston is the closest team to Tulane, and I feel like that's the game that's probably considered Tulane's only real rivalry in the league right now. For one,
that 2018 game, I was not aware until that night that it was possible to have a bad time in New Orleans on a Friday night. I didn't know one could do that.
I've had some bad mornings now.
I've had some bad Sunday mornings, but Friday nights are usually pretty good. Brian, next.
Do you think, my last question for me, do you think that Pratt gets, I guess, will he become the all-time leader, the passing leader? I think he has a very good chance of doing that.
Yeah, if he stays healthy, he will. He'll be back next year. He's and here what I hadn't mentioned is Tulane's wide receivers are infinitely better this year than last year. And I'm not saying it's a great group, but there were many times last year when I felt like Tulane's wide receivers might have been the worst in the FBS in terms of they couldn't catch, they couldn't get open, they couldn't get separation. And they brought two of the transfer portal guys they brought in. One of them was Day McDougal, who went to Maryland, who was a teammate of Michael Pratt in high school, and they're best friends. When it didn't work out for him in Maryland, he wanted to come play for Michael Pratt. He's got a ton of ability. They like to use him on jet sweeps and motion, stuff like that. And then another guy, Lawrence Keys, was a big recruit out of New Orleans, went to Notre Dame. He had some injury issues at Notre Dame. He came back this year. They've just increased their work ethic and talent level has increased the entire wide receiver group. So the returning receivers, Deuce Watts, who was pretty good, but inconsistent in the past, has gotten a lot better. Jaquan Jackson, who was a good returner, inconsistent as a receiver, he's gotten a lot better. They suddenly have, and then Shea Wyatt, who was the surprise last year. He was the best wide receiver on the team last year, and he played in Division II football the year before. And at Central Missouri, and he came in and led the team in receptions. They've got him too. So they've got 5 wide receivers that are productive this year. And last year they maybe had about 1/2 of a wide receiver that was productive. And none of these guys are seniors. They're all coming back. So yeah, I think Pratt will easily break Tulane's record if he stays healthy, because he's got this year and next year for sure as a starting quarterback.
So I know nobody likes to look ahead, but you got us and you got Tulsa, and then you've got UCF, SMU, and Cincinnati back to back.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Looking ahead, this team, assuming that it can keep this going. I hope we don't, by the way. I hope we totally break your record. Okay. Break it up. But assuming you do, that last 3 games, as you look at this team, is this team built to survive that kind of a stretch?
It's built that it can survive that kind of stretch. See, it's funny. 3 years ago, Tulane played at Memphis. Tulane was 5-1 going to that game. It was actually 1 spot out of the top 25. I'll plead ignorance. I had no idea how talented Memphis was that year, because Memphis was coming off a loss to Temple. I did media that year in Memphis and predicted that Tulane would win. 5 minutes into the game, I noticed this thing about Memphis being like infinitely better than Tulane at every single skill position on the field, and it went south in a hurry.
You realize that team had 4 starting NFL running backs on.
Yeah, I didn't realize it going into that game. Watching that game, I realized it pretty darn quick. I mean, that was, and Tulane never recovered from that game. Tulane lost 5 of that was the beginning of losing 5 of their last 6, because Tulane legitimately thought they were a good team. At ESPN Game Day, half of their crew picked Tulane to win that day going into the game. Tulane's rarely getting picked on ESPN Game Day, win or lose. Their game's never even usually on the board. And Memphis let them know how far away this Tulane team. There's no team with the skill position talent that Memphis had 3 years ago that Tulane's gonna be placing. But this Tulane defense should keep them in every game. And then they've got Michael Pratt and they've got Tyjae Spears, who is one of the best running backs in the country. So I don't think there's any team. I don't think UCF is going to come into Yulman Stadium and just blow them out. I don't think even playing at Cincinnati that Cincinnati is going to just out talent them where they can't compete. Can Tulane execute well enough? We'll find out. And I'm certainly not counting this Memphis game as a win either, because this is a different. Tulane's beaten Memphis 2 times in a row, but 4 years ago it's a huge underdog, and 2 years ago it was into the season. It's a different experience for Tulane, being ranked for the first time, being a touchdown favorite on a team that they haven't been a significant favorite against. And I can't remember the last time. It'll be interesting to see how this team handles success, because there hadn't been a ton of that in the past to get a gauge of what's going to happen.
So along those lines, what do you think about Saturday? How do you think it's going to go?
I think Tulane should win, just because Memphis, again, it's not going to be a deal where they've got guys that are so fast that Tulane's trying to cover them one-on-one, and you can see the vapor 10 yards behind, trailing receivers all over the field like 3 years ago. Memphis has a good passing attack, but it's not that overwhelming athletic ability that they had before, and Tulane has increased their athletic ability. So assuming that Tulane continues doing what winning teams do and Memphis continues doing what losing teams do in the last 2 games, of course, Memphis could probably definitely should have beaten Houston. That was a fluke, and could have beaten East Carolina. But if Memphis continues to make those type of mistakes and that cost you games, and Tulane continues to not, I think Tulane wins this game. But I certainly don't think it's a lock. Tulane needs to. Tulane was in a little bit of trouble against South Florida last week, and then Bohannon, who was just killing them, got injured and went out the game, and then the game was over because their backup quarterback had no chance. And then South Florida remembered that they don't ever win football games anymore. But Bohannon, they had a 2-drive stretch in the first half where they had 10 plays and 149 yards of offense and 2 touchdowns to take a 14-10 lead. They get the ball back. Bohannon runs for 9 yards, injures his shoulder, and is out for the game. And then the whole tenor of the game changed. So it'll be interesting also. That's really the first adversity Tulane's had on defense all year. The Southern Miss game they lost was because they got 2 kicks blocked and a pick 6. The defense played great in that game too. So it'll be interesting to see, did they lose any confidence at all in that game? Or was that just, you're not going to play great every week? And was it just a matter of just an off week for the defense? But I think Tulane wins. I think Tulane wins by 10, but I could see it going the other way too. So
tell everybody how they can find you before we let you go.
I'm the beat writer for NOLA.com and the Advocate, and then my website, Tulane.rivals.com, thewavereport.com. Nobody covers them. Really, nobody covered Tulane until they got ranked this week, other than me. So if you want information on Tulane, those 2 sources, NOLA.com and thewavereport.com are the place to go. And I've said before, if you're a Tulane fan and you don't subscribe to my website, you're missing pretty much everything because you're not getting it from any other source.
Gary, thanks so much for taking time to join us this evening, and look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Thanks for having me on the show, and sorry for my issues. Could not get my browser to enable the mic. No matter what I tried to do, I finally had to turn it off, turn it back on, and use my 12-year-old son's computer skills to get that thing working.
Thanks a lot, Gary. Have a great night.
You too.
So Guerry Smith there from thewavereport.com, along with NOLA.com and the Advocate, Times Advocate in New Orleans. B, we're going to start with you. What are maybe a couple keys to the game for you on Saturday besides the little things?
No, to me, that's it. It's the little things. That's the only thing that I think Memphis needs to work on. I mean, because when you take a look at on how they lost against Houston, how they lost against ECU, it's the little things that's killing them. And I just want to see those little things buttoned up, because if you button up those little things, you're sitting at 6-1 instead of 4-3. And I still want to talk about that catch, no catch.
Yeah, we'll do that in just a second. Larry, what's maybe a key to the game for you?
I think the key to the game is defensively, we have got to be consistent. We've got to stay in our lanes. He's absolutely right. This is probably the most talented offense that we've seen since the Mississippi State. I don't think there's much question. And it's certainly the best running back and quarterback combination that we've seen since Mississippi State. And you've got to stay in your lanes, and we've got to play smart defense. Otherwise, guys, I don't know that we are going to be able to keep up with them. I really don't.
You know, I never thought I'd see the day where somebody said that about Memphis and Tulane. But I can't disagree with anything that either one of you said. I can't find fault with that. I got nothing for this game. I said it last week, and we talked ad nauseum about, how is this team going to respond to adversity? Well, they responded. Yeah, Jim's got a great point. If we just get off the field on 3rd and 15,
absolutely.
And we'll go back to that in just a second. So let's finish this up here. It was really disappointing to see the body language. And Larry and I are big on this, right? Like, if we're texting back and forth during the game, I'm sure Brian's tired of hearing it's like, look at their body language, look at the body language. But you can tell a lot by a team by how they're standing on the sidelines. And I'll give you, for instance, from the Houston game. Swag surf is going on and our players are jumping around and they're having a good time. And you look over Houston, they look like they'd rather be anywhere else than in Memphis. And then you watch towards kind of midway through that, or the stretch from hell we had from about 4 minutes left in the second quarter until the end of the third quarter at ECU, and we looked like we'd rather be anywhere else. And I'll say this about this week, and I said this last week. You are not going to win this game in the first quarter, as we saw last week, but you can sure as hell lose this game in the first quarter. And that's my worry, that the weight of all of this, whether it be people sniping about, Coach Silverfield's job or just the team underperforming or whatever, this is still, and, Coach says this ad nauseum too, this is still one of the youngest teams in the country, although I would buffer that by saying at week 7, there are no more, or week 8, there are no more freshmen on your team, right? Like everybody's kind of on a level playing field, but we are still on paper one of the youngest teams in the country. Does the weightiness of that get to Memphis finally? Because it really hasn't the last 2 weeks. We've just kind of collapsed down the stretch. But is this the week where the weightiness of, Brian, where we start pressing and trying too hard? Is this the week where that happens? And as we lead into that, 2:30, carry the 1. 6:00, I'm going to be optimistic. 6:07 p.m. on Saturday, the Ullman Stadium scoreboard will say.
For me, I think the youngness, or whatever you want to call it, the youth of this team, it's been affecting them all year. Like I said, it's those little things. If I have 2 predictions, because I want to know if Quindell is playing. If Quindell is playing, I think Memphis wins this. If he is not playing, I think they lose it. And it'll be the same score either way, in my opinion. I think it's going to be like a 32-24 game. Like I said, if Memphis wins, if Quindell plays, 32-24 Memphis. If he's not playing, I think it's 32-24 Tulane.
Larry?
I wish it mattered. I don't think it does, guys. I think Memphis is going to struggle in this game. A couple of things going against us. First off, we don't play well in Ullman. We just don't. And you're good. John, you say this all the time. You're just going to have to show me you can win down there. I mean, I think you're just going to have to prove to me you can do it. Because some damn good teams have gone down there and not been able to get it done. And then the other side to this is, frankly, right now, I think this is a wounded team. I see it. I see a team that, look, I know 2 losses by 3 points total is you could say, gosh, are they really wounded? Yes, they are. They're playing the best team they've played since Mississippi State. They're not playing great right now. They're not playing bad, but they're not playing great. And frankly, guys, in order to win this game, they don't have to play their best football, but they have to play disciplined, and they have to do, Brian, the little things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they're capable of doing the little things for 4 quarters right now. I've got
they
it.
Almost.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I've got it. I've simply got this 38-28 Tulane.
Here's why I say Memphis has a better chance of what some people are thinking. Tulane had to get a touchdown with 40 seconds or 39 seconds left to get it into overtime against Houston. And just look what they did against Southern Miss. Wasn't a great performance, and they lost. And that was at home for Tulane. It wasn't like they were at Southern Miss. And then last week against South Florida, if Bohannon didn't go out, that game easily could have gone South Florida's way. So that's why, I mean, if you're just looking at 6-1 Tulane, you have to dig a little bit deeper. Look at the games that they've played. They are beatable. And I know you're shaking your head, but they are beatable.
It ain't how, it's how many. I feel that way, and I've got this game 31-17 Tulane because I think what I alluded to a little bit earlier is the problem, is that the weightiness, and it doesn't matter who presses, if it's the coaches or the players. Look, Ryan Silverfield and Matt Barnes and Tom Cramsey, they're grown-ass men. They know what's on the line. Like they don't have to read the paper to figure this out. That's what Cal used to always say, oh, I don't read the paper. Well, no crap. You're a grown man. You don't have to read the paper to know what's going on. Idiot. Anyway, he's just, I'd always chat my heart about Cal. But, they know, and it doesn't matter if Seth is pressing or if Cramsey presses or if Matt Barnes doesn't press enough. That's what Jalen Allen, those guys talk about. Matt Barnes is what they call a red line guy. And if you're not a car guy, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But Matt Barnes lives life on the edge. His energy is 100% all the time. He's a screamer. He yells. He runs around the sidelines. He's a madman. And I noticed in these Carolina game, they had kind of settled down a little bit. And I think he's the guy that needs to press to get this defense to play better, just in general, because Ryan's Coach Silverfield, he's just not a screamer, right? Like that's just not his personality, and that's fine. A lot of guys aren't yellers and screamers and jump around. You have a lot of guys that Willie Fritz is a guy. He doesn't yell, scream, jump around. He's just a coach. But I think the problem comes when it comes down to belief. And what I ask is the simple question: does Memphis believe in their heart of hearts? And I cannot believe we are having this conversation, but does Memphis believe in their heart of hearts that they can go into Ullman Stadium and come out with a win? I don't think they do. And I think that, obviously if you ask them, yes, it's us against the world. And maybe that's the mentality, Brian, they need to adapt, is it's us against the world. Nobody believes in us. What was it? The NFL player said a few weeks ago that kind of went viral. I forgot. It was Geno Smith. He said something about they wrote the book on they wrote the book on me and I didn't write, or something about I come back and I didn't write back. I forget the line. It was fantastic. But yeah, but Brian, that's just the ultimate question. In their heart of hearts, when they are it's the whole wrestling promo, deep down in the middle of the night, when you wake up in the middle of the night in a sweat, do you believe you can win? And that's my worry with this game, is I don't know if Memphis really believes they can win.
No, I think they do, because to me, the way you see certain players react to when things go bad, it's not that they're just mad. They're really aggravated that a mistake happened, because they know they are better. I mean, look at Aces Martin's response when Hennigan overthrew or threw into double, I think it was double, maybe even triple coverage, to pre-scoring in that fourth overtime when Martin was wide open. I mean, he was visibly upset. It's like, come on, we're better than this. So I think that, I know a lot of people point to the coaches, but some of these senior leadership guys on Memphis need to, take the young guys and just write like, hey, this is not how we play. I think some leadership needs to step up now.
But I would come back and say, is this how we play? Yeah, I mean, you look
right.
You look back at the last couple of years. How do we play? And who are we? What's our identity? What's our, we joke all the time amongst the three of us. I'm the negative Nelly. Brian's the positive Paul, and Larry's the what are we going to call Larry here? The neutral Nancy. Like,
I guess
I'm
he's a little more negative. Not as negative as you, though.
No, I mean, I tend to be negative, and that's fine. But
here's
the thing: we know who we are, right? Like, we know our role, we know who we are, and we're true to who we are. But that starts with knowing who you are. And I don't think Memphis has any idea who they are.
I just think that they don't know how, and we've talked about this. God bless it. When Pastner was coach, what are we in basketball? You look at Memphis basketball right now, they know what they are. Defense first and the 3-point shooting. That's what they do. Everybody knows this. It's a secret. And I just question, does they have an identity? And what's your identity? You have to know what you like in football. I always knew, I've told you guys this before. I knew by the time I was a senior, I knew exactly what play we were going to call in a certain situation. I didn't even have to look at the sidelines. I knew. Now, I didn't know what set we were going to run it out of. I didn't know that. I didn't know if we were going to run nickel or dot, whatever, but I knew what we were going to run, more or less. And I knew that we're going to blitz strong side right now. That's the way we're going to do it. But guys, I just don't know. I mean, I think I will say short answer here. I think we're getting leads. You've got to figure out how to play winning football for 4 quarters when you get a lead. It's just you have to be able to do it. Period. It just crushes you when you don't. It's like your closer coming in and blowing a 3-run lead. It just crushes you. You have to win that game. And when you're up 3 scores, you've got to win that game. It's just that simple. I can't put it any other way.
I had Coach Sales told me one time, he said it's harder sometimes to handle success than it is adversity, because with adversity, you're playing with your back against the wall and you're fighting for everything you have. And when you're out in front, everything looks great. All right. So before we wrap up here, I want to go back for some crazy reason, because I'm a masochist, I guess, and I want to revisit the East Carolina game and talk about a couple of things. Well, first of all, let's start with the catch, no catch deal. So what happened is, when I first saw it at full speed, it looked like the kid made a great catch. I was watching, but I didn't have an angle. And then when they showed the replay, he clearly didn't make the catch. Like, he flat out dropped it, and we didn't review it. And, a lot of people killed Coach Silverfield for that. And at some point, even I was on that bandwagon of, how do you not look at it? Well, the explanation that was given kind of makes sense. Coach Silverfield said that the replay looked at it and determined it wasn't worth looking at. Basically, I'm paraphrasing here. He said that, they said they had already looked at it. Being a husband and having 2 fellow husbands here, I'm sure we can all agree that how many times out of 100 does our wife say, "Hey, can you go get the pitcher out of the dishwasher and fill it up with tea and put the tea in the refrigerator?" And we go and we pull the pitcher out and we go tell our wife, "I can't find the tea." "Well, did you look in the cabinet?" "Yes, I looked in the cabinet." "Did you look in the cabinet?" "Yes." And she goes,
"You didn't look in the cabinet."
No, she goes and opens the cabinet door, and there's the tea sitting right there, right? And, my point is, Jeb just made me laugh again. No truth to the rumor that the replay official was from Greenville, North Carolina, because, my God, who would want to be from that forsaken hellhole of a city? But anyway, I digress. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult both the good people of Greenville. You have to, I knew, and this is going back, a lot of people weren't sure about Justin Fuente being the guy at Memphis. I knew when we were playing UT Martin and we were losing, and Justin got a 15-yard penalty for yelling and screaming at an official. And I'm pretty sure he was not exchanging kind platitudes with him. I knew, I was like, Justin's our guy. That's a guy that's going to fight for us. And Brian, Saturday, I think Coach Silverfield had that shot to just raise hell about that play, because his answer was, well, they said they looked at it and we couldn't call a timeout and look at it again. Well, hindsight I'd have called a timeout anyway and said, all right, show me in the rules where it says you can't look at it again. I want you to look at it again.
Did you know that a timeout was taken?
Yeah, it was an injury timeout. But
yeah,
you can't just take these guys at face value sometimes, because the guy that called it was screened. I mean, I'm not, I try to be fair with officials, and the line judge that was running down the line, he was screened. He couldn't see it. And it looked like he made a great catch, because again, even on Twitter, my first response is, holy crap, what a catch. But it felt like we just went, oh, well, what are you going to do? And then
see, John, this is, and I was watching. So for those who don't know, I was in Hattiesburg with my daughter, and I'm watching on my phone, and I thought he dropped it when I saw it in real time on my phone, and I was like, oh, he dropped that one, and then they counted it, and I'm like screaming in the parking lot outside the Rock, at my phone. I'm sure getting some weird looks
no, you've been down there a couple times now. It's
okay,
they're used to that.
Valid point. They know who I am. But all kidding aside, I'm screaming like, challenge that. I mean, you're not within the 2 minutes, right? So it's not going to be automatically reviewed, right? Isn't that the way it works? Within 2 minutes, it's automatically reviewed. So you're not in that time frame yet, and it's third down. So if you're right, they have to punt, and you get the ball of a tie game. Let's go through this one more time with me, okay? It's third down. They threw a pass that it was, by your own standards, John, a great catch.
Oh, no, he dropped it.
He didn't make a great catch.
He didn't.
And everybody sees this on the replay. And I know, or he's getting stuff in his headphone. He's got to be. If not,
see, that was the thing. It happened, and I know
again, they ran down the field, but
it happened, but it happened opposite the press box. So you couldn't, if you were in the press box, there was no reasonable way you could have seen it. However, there are 100+ guys over there. Somebody had to see him drop it. Now, the rules were posted earlier on Sunday, and I frankly don't remember what they are. And Brian, you have a good point. There was a timeout. There was an injury timeout.
And he asked, it's not like he just asked once. There was repeated asks to review it, and each time the answer was no. So if that's true,
15-yarder, because damn it,
that's damn right. Yep.
Because I'm going to be out on the field until you explain to me why. Because this play, if that play is overturned, they're punting. We get the ball back with a chance to win a tie game. So no, hell no. We're this is the hill I'm going. Jeb,
you can die. Yeah, you could die on that hill.
Die on. Right here.
You can die on that hill, and the end result would still be the same. They get a first down.
I understand.
And this way, you still have a timeout. I mean, I was on your guys' side saying should have took a timeout until I heard there was repeated asked, not just one time. They've asked multiple times for it to be reviewed, and they were told it was already reviewed. We're not reviewing.
I'm sorry.
That's not an
official
official
bullshit. Review. I mean, that's just a total flat out fabrication, because it is not a review until that idiot in the white hat goes over there and puts that stupid headset on and looks into that stupid little tablet and talks to the
well, I should say, I guess looked at, but to his point, you can't make the official review it. But you can take a timeout.
But you know what you can do? You can get in that official's face and draw that damn 15-yard penalty and show your kids that you are fighting for every inch.
There you go.
And that's the whole problem I had with it, is we kind of, so we asked nicely 3 or 4 times. Those headsets, just ask Nick Saban how far a headset will go. throw the damn headset, because at that point, if you don't get it overturned, if they don't review it,
they scored a touchdown anyway.
All right, so you get a 15-yard penalty, fine, and they get a first down, they score a touchdown, and we're glossing over the fact here that East Carolina has one of the finest running backs in the country, in Keaton Mitchell, who ran it in on the next play. But at some point, you have to show something. You can't always be a pacifist. And I just watched that moment, and Memphis looked defeated. And technically, Brian, you're absolutely right. The only thing you could have done is gone full WWE and grab the official by the nape of his neck and drag him over to the thing as security is hanging on you to drag you off to jail, and shove that stupid headset on and make him look at that stupid tablet and stand there and tell you, or have somebody else tell you, oh, we can't do that. We can't review that, because you didn't review it. You just looked at it and went, no, looks fine with me. All right, next play. And it happened again on an East Carolina touchdown where the guy clearly wasn't in. And I'm screaming.
That was in overtime too.
Yeah, my cats are running out of the room because they think I've lost my mind. I'm screaming, review it, review it, review it. And Ward, you have a great point. I'm not saying that's the answer to the team's problems, is having a coach get an unsportsmanlike. That's
no, but
I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, at some point, all we ever hear is the team takes on the personality of their coach. Right? We've all heard that over the years. The team takes on the personality of their coach.
And they do.
And at some point, it's the old adage, right? Where a coach, and John, we've talked about him twice on the podcast now, was the master of the well-timed technical foul. Like he was the absolute master of that, of knowing when to yell and scream at an official and knowing which official to yell and scream at and get a technical foul. He knew exactly, and he knew how they would respond. Now, the flip side of that is that would be so out of character for Coach Silverfield, it probably would have freaked everybody out, because that's just not his character. And Coach Silverfield's a good man, he's a good leader, and he's just not a yell and scream guy. But at some point, you have to fight for something. And I felt like that was a key point in the game that we could have fought. And I didn't see any emotion from the Memphis sideline with that. And I went back and I watched it again, because I was so very in the moment that I was like, let me go back and watch. I didn't feel like I watched the team, and usually with stuff like that, and Larry, you've played, Brian, you've played, dudes are just going out of their damn mind. They're losing it.
I will tell you this, Coach, the craziest person I ever played for, Coach Mike Smith, who ended up coaching the Atlanta Falcons. I've talked about it many times. I literally saw him. He ran. This is back when you still had the headsets were still actually physically connected to something. He ran until he broke the wire and was running on the sidelines with this little thing hanging down, looked like a tail hanging down. And I've never seen someone literally chase an official around the entire sidelines. Now, we did get a penalty. We got a penalty, but we won that game. And you're right, John. That our defense took on that personality of not just him, but I think the coaching staff in general, and of we're going to fight until the very last second. And guys, I was very disappointed that I'll say it another way. And Ward, I know what you're saying, but I will tell you this. I know this for a fact. You have to make those officials respect you. That is a fact. This is not conjecture. And if they think for 1 second that they can half-ass something, believe me, they will.
Absolutely.
And there's a reason why Nick Saban, they don't half-ass anything on his games, because they will have a size 9 shoe up their ass.
And if they ain't from Nick, it's going to be from Miss Terry. Total aside here that has nothing to do with that. What a hell of a weekend of college football. All things considered, just an incredible weekend. That atmosphere in Neyland was incredible. One of the finest games I've ever watched. Doesn't matter. I want to punt both teams into the sun, but it was a great game and just a good weekend. But it was a bad weekend for officials. Even in that game, there were several just the pass interference on Tennessee that they called in the fourth quarter when Alabama scored, just a horrendous call. And you saw Josh Heupel, who is also kind of a mild-mannered dude. He lost his cool a little bit, and I think Jeb hit it perfectly. It was like we went, well, what you going to do? Oh, well, on to the next one.
Let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to kick your –
But one more thing I want to talk about before we get out of here. Wow. Oh, that's Brian. All right. Well, we've muted Brian here for a second. Don't know what happened there. Brian's so angry he turned into the Hulk there for a minute. But the play in overtime. Nope, still there. The play in overtime. That the run pass option that was supposed to be Brian, I don't know what's going on with you, but wow. The run pass option, Larry, will real quick while Brian tries to figure that out. It didn't look like a run pass option to me. I went back and I watched it again.
It was not.
And
unless they've come up with a different meaning for RPO.
Well, I don't think it was an RPO. Let me back up. I don't think it was an RPO. I think it was a check with me, probably at the line. And, Coach Cramsey and Evan Barnes tweeted it out today, and I think I retweeted it. But Coach Cramsey had this nice long explanation about, well, the play was designed that if, Tulane or if East Carolina showed this, then we did this. And if they showed this, then we did this. And the answer was we didn't do any of those things. We didn't do any of them. And you go back and you watch that play again, and it goes to something Brian said. Football is the ultimate team game, right? In that you've got 11 dudes, and if only one of them doesn't do their job, 10 other guys can do their job absolutely perfectly. One guy doesn't, and it puts the turd in the punch bowl.
It can, yes, for sure.
So, I don't disagree that it was probably a good play call. I don't know that I would have called it in that spot, I guess.
Let me say that one of the criminal things that coaches do is overthink. And the KISS principle is, to me, the best option in a lot of situations, especially with football. Okay. One of the things when I was playing, there was this thing called the run and shoot. Okay. And the run and shoot was basically when you get to the line, if the defense does this, then the wide receiver is supposed to do a certain thing. If they're doing something else, the wide receiver has to do another thing. And it works great as long as everybody's on the same page. But when you get down into a pressure-packed situation, we would consistently see the run and shoot break down because somebody would overthink something. What, to me, you want in a tough situation like this is a simple but effective or attempted at an effective play. Don't make the players overthink. Have a single play and execute it effectively. Tell me I'm wrong, guys. That's exactly, you want efficient execution.
Well,
were you guys talking about the
Asa Martin play at the end of the overtime?
Yeah, because Matt Dale literally walked his guy, guided him like, hey, come on, buddy. Here, I'll show you where Asa is. Just easily, just here he is, tackle him.
But
it was, oof.
That kind of goes to what Larry's saying about your guy doing, everybody's got to do their job or something goes wrong. Did Matt think that's how he was supposed to block that? That's that's what people don't think about with football, because it's easy for us to go, oh, well, Matt Dale blew that block. Well, maybe Matt, and he's still wrong. Let's, be fair. Maybe he thought that's how he was supposed to drive him inside so Asa could take out of the gap and could go around and not, right in the gap. So it just comes down, and Larry, you bring up a good point. This, you talk about overthinking. I call it smartest guy in the room syndrome, right? Like it always goes back to 2014 Memphis, Central Florida for me. Calling a halfback pass when you need a 2-point play to tie the game. Like, what the hell are you doing, Justin? You have to, in that thing, go, okay, here's how I look at that. And again, I'm an idiot with a podcast and not a highly paid head football coach. What do we do good? Like when Memphis is clicking, what's good? What works for Memphis?
I would have lined up with the tight end in the backfield and run it. Okay, here we come. Stop it. Because you got it's a 2-point conversion, right? I mean, that's basically it. And fine. Stop it. I'm going to run right here, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it.
Why would you do that when we've run for 61 yards in 4 quarters?
Well, I'm saying if you're going to run up the middle, that's what I do. I didn't say I'd run up the middle, but if you're going to run, line up and run.
But you have both sides. If you're going to pass, you got to make sure the quarterback actually gets it to the open person, like the 4th overtime. Seth over, but defensively too.
I'm just saying. I mean,
saying, like, do something that you feel comfortable with, and this goes back to what we've been saying this whole show. What does he feel comfortable doing? Because in the nut cutting, when it comes down to the crunch time, you got to know what you like to do. And I'll give you an exact example of this. In the AAC championship game, 4th down, Norvell calls a little screen pass or his little out, the little out pass that he liked to run, and they did it 100,000 times. He throws it to Gibson. Gibson scores a touchdown, and that ultimately is the difference in the game. Guys, what do you like to do? What do you like to do right there?
Shovel pass. That's what John likes to do.
Okay. If that's what, look, if you've done it 100,000 times in practice and that's what you like to do it.
Ward does have a good point. You do have to have 6 or 7 plays and 2-point conversions.
Agreed.
But at some point,
we call one of them. Don't have 5 of them.
But at some point, it comes down to, and this is run, pass, whatever. We're going to get out here in just a minute, but to me, this is kind of important. Run, pass, whatever. I'm going to line up and do what I want to do, and you're going to have to stop me. Like, here's what I'm doing. Everybody talks about, Oklahoma back in the day, they ran the wishbone and everybody knew what was coming. But guess what? They couldn't stop it. Oklahoma could have handed the other team the play card and said, here's the plays, and here's the order we're going to run them in. Do something about it. And whatever it is, if, I will credit East Carolina. They did a great job of with Priestcorn down in the goal to go and the 2-point situations. And, Caden probably ran the wrong route on one. He kind of ran into double coverage. But again, if Seth just looks away, Asa Martin's standing there wide open.
It's those little things.
But in Seth's defense, that was probably the second time all night that he had time to stand back there and look around. And when you've been under fire as much as he was in that game, every half second you hold that football feels like 30 minutes because you don't know if somebody's coming to your blind side or not, or you don't know if somebody picked the blitz up the middle because you emptied it out and you spread it. Because that's where East Carolina got us several times, right? Was we spread everybody out, we'd flare out the back, and they'd have that little delayed blitz right up the middle, and it ate our lunch on several occasions.
He didn't have to look that far off to see he's right there. Same side of the field.
What do we call that? Fog of war. I mean, you're in the fog of war. But
the whole overtime, there were so many little things that could go wrong. And that second overtime before the Asa Martin play, ECU had a 3rd and 15. If Memphis stops that, ECU had a freshman kicker. But 3rd and 15, nobody covered a drag route underneath that wide receiver? Wide open. hit him, and goes for 16 yards.
Do you know why? Because we sat back in an 8-man shell.
And then in the third overtime, where ECU threw it out to the right-hand side receiver, Savante Oliver, that missed tackle.
Just missed it. I mean,
just the little things. It's these little things that are killing you.
They are, but I'm going to make 2 quick points here. Number one, those things are going to happen, right? Like a guy's going to miss a tackle. Like it's going to happen, because what fans forget is the other team has good players too. We don't have the monopoly on good players. They have playmakers too that can make plays. But the difference is, and Guerry talked about this with Tulane. If a Tulane guy misses a tackle, there's 4 other guys right there to tackle the guy that the first guy missed. And that's where we miss Quindell Johnson.
And that's why I say if Quindell's playing,
I don't think that matters that much. But and we'll close with this. And Larry, you said it that Memphis is wounded. But do you know what the most dangerous animal is in the world?
Wounded animal.
A wounded animal are the most dangerous, because they're going to fight their way out of the corner. Like if you get
I hope we have that fight, guys. I really do.
Yeah, me too. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Sorry, we ran really long tonight. Just had a lot to get off my mind after not being here last week. Wow, that was a dog bark, and I couldn't agree more. Just a lot to get off my chest. I wasn't here last week, so I've got a couple weeks of frustration built up. But Memphis and Tulane, Saturday at Yulman Stadium, 2:30 in the afternoon, the worst time for a game. I'm sorry. I'm an 11 a.m. or a 6 p.m. guy, or 7 p.m. That part doesn't matter. I hate 2:30 games. Anyway, but that's why they don't ask me to make schedules. So that's going to do it for this week. Saturday, 2:30, Yulman Stadium, Memphis and Tulane will tangle. Tigers come in 4-3. Real quick, guys, before we get out of here, I know I've said that twice. Brian, are we out of the AAC race, you think, at this point?
Just like in 2018, we thought Memphis was out of it.
Here we go again.
Positive Paul. Got it. I mean, seriously, though.
Yes.
Look at the schedule. Slight chance, like a 1% chance. But as Dumb and Dumber, are you saying
there's a chance?
There's a chance. Yes. Is it a big chance? No. Is it likely? No. But there is a chance.
Because here's the reality: except for Cincinnati, you've got 2 of the teams that are in front of you still to play,
and they play each other.
Man, Tulane, I want to know what they did to the poor schedule maker. Holy crap, that's a rough stretch. But anyway, so that's going to do it for us this week. Thanks for joining us here tonight. We will be back next week to recap the Tulane game and get you set for.
It's bye week, John.
Oh yeah, well, it's not a bye week for John. John has bandmasters, so no days off. That's my new motto around here.
But we may have a special guest next week.
Oh, that's what we call a tease in the industry, boys and girls. So for Brian Moss and Larry Marley, this is John Maddox signing off, and we will see everybody next week. Thanks for tuning in.